These networked practices, reproduction, sharing, conversations, trigger the mechanisms of reflexivity that link an individual to collective reality and produce new forms of learning. In this context, the learning environment has changed through a paradigm shift. The first is from a culture of ownership and originality to a culture of sharing. From a knowledge economy that favors the building of stocks of knowledge to the need to continually update our inventory by participating in relevant flows of knowledge. For example, interactions that create knowledge or transfer it across individuals. And from top-down and informational forms of education to conversational and reciprocal ones. In this sense, we need to talk about how meaning emerges collectively and collaboratively in the new media environment, and how creativity operates differently in an open source culture based on sampling, appropriation, transformation, and repurposing. The social production of meaning is more than individual interpretation multiplied. It represents a qualitative difference in the ways we make sense of cultural experience. And in this sense, it represents a change in how we understand literacy. In such a world, youth need skills for working within social networks, for pooling knowledge within a collective intelligence, for negotiating across cultural differences that shape the governing assumption in different communities, and for reconciling conflicting bits of data to form a coherent picture of the world around them. We must integrate these new knowledge cultures into our schools, not only through group work, but also through long-distance collaboration across different learning communities. Students should discover what it's like to contribute their own expertise to a process that involves many intelligences, a process they encounter readily in their participation in fun discussion lists or blogging. Indeed, this disparate collaboration may be the most radical element of new literacies. They enable collaboration and knowledge sharing with large-scale communities that may never personally interact. So, synthesizing this perspective, we are facing a participatory culture, in Jenkins' terms, including opportunities for peer-to-peer learning, a changed attitude toward intellectual property, the diversification of cultural expression, the development of skills valued in the modern workplace, and a more empowered conception of citizenship. Networking also implies the ability to tap social networks to disperse one's own ideas and media products. Many youth are creating independent media production, but only some learn how to be heard by large audiences. Increasingly, young artists are tapping networks of fans or gamers with the goal of reaching a broader readership for their work. They create within existing cultural communities not because they were inspired by a particular media property, but because they want to reach the property's audience of loyal consumers. Young people are learning to link their websites together into web rings, in part to increase the visibility of any given site, and also to increase the profile of the group. Teachers are finding that students are often more motivated if they can share what they create with a larger community. As students make their work accessible to a larger public, they face public consequences for what they write, and thus they face the kind of ethical dilemmas. Yet, we would argue that schools have a different obligation to help all children learn to use such tools effectively, and to understand the value of networking as a means of acquiring knowledge and distributing information. Learning in a networked society involves understanding how networks work and how to deploy them for one's own ends. It involves understanding the social and cultural context within which different information emerges, when to trust and when not to trust others, to filter and prioritize relevant data, and how to use network to get one's own.